Well, what a perfect way to start our our non-serious part of the podcast.
Accidentally closed the meeting altogether.
So
what's your biggest pet peeve?
Yeah, there you go. That's our first question. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Where do I begin?
I got a bunch, yeah.
Picking just one pet peeve is my biggest pet peeve.
Does it have anything to do with the inability to press mute on Zoom now and as we resume regular classes?
That was a hilarious comment, Suzanne.
That was funny, wasn't it? So a hat tip to you, Suzanne, if you're watching this. No, we will not come Friday have the ability to mute you anymore. So you can, looky there. But that's a trade-off that I'll happily take, right? Get faces back in the gym, get people moving back with the themes and ideas of what we hold true to, and deal with a little bit of, hey, all that is to us is just them excited to see each other. You punched a hard day at work and you get off work and you're ready to enjoy an hour with your friends. So we'll take that all day.
Absolutely.
What's your biggest pet peeve, Justin?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
When Odin doesn't listen?
No, he listens all right. So we got an e-collar. I guess poor little me, I guess, one of those. Poor little, as Robbie Turner used to say, plum, poor little old me, and maybe hypocrisy. Like, I don't know. Like, that's why the news and media, like, just makes me so angry. It's just like, come on, you said this 6 seconds ago, you have a new anchor, and now you're saying this, and both of these are facts, and they're both studies. Like, how is this possible? So I'll say one of those two. I'm a donkey, okay? I'm an a-hole.
Does anything come to mind specific that you want to cover?
I didn't have this prepared as a question. It literally just sprouted up in my head as I was talking about that phone call. I don't know.
We know that being interrupted is one of them.
Well, for starters.
I don't have enough patience with myself, and I lack patience to grant myself patience. I guess that's probably the biggest thing. It's like when I find myself frustrated, sometimes it dominoes against me, and I'm fully aware of it, and I'm fully unable to change the pitch sometimes of my temperament. It's like, well, I've lost a toehold. I'm just going to ride in this chariot of anger at times and frustration or whatever it is. I don't know that that's a really direct answer, but I didn't prepare the question, nor did I prepare an answer. So that's me wondering through a lack of patience with myself when I know better. Maybe that's the best way to put it.
Sometimes shooting from the hip are the best answer, right?
Yes.
Sometimes.
I'm definitely a tyrant. I'm definitely a tyrant with myself. There's no other way to describe it.
What about
Sounds
you?
like we're going from pet peeves to like our own downfalls. So it sounds like to me.
Well, maybe I should elaborate that. So pet peeve for me is something it's not important, but it continues to grate at you for some reason. And I don't like being unable to control the things that grate at me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
So for example, that phone call, like, why are you calling me? And it made me really angry.
Sure.
Or if I have a plan that continues to wilt in real time, frustrating. And maybe it kind of relates back to that whole illusion of control that I like to maintain. So when that illusion becomes less like an illusion, it's more frustrating to me.
And I want to go back to mine real quick. Mine will be consistent, poor little old me. Like, everybody has those days. I don't want to be like, hey, you can't approach me because I'm going to make fun of you and beat you up. But just like consistent, all right, you've done the same thing for 6 weeks and you're still complaining about it. Try to change something. So I don't want to be like complete a-hole.
Jay, I share that same.
Backtracks and saves face very nice.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, don't approach me. Nobody approach me.
Just trying to keep social distancing, guys.
If anyone in this is approachable, it would be you, Steve, for sure. Like, you guys can definitely handle that the most. Steve?
Jay, I would share that same sentiment. I'm not a big fan of that either. Like, I'm a big believer that anyone can pull themselves up by the bootstraps. I'm not going to hang out, and I won't even. To be honest, I subconsciously will separate from people like that. Like, subconsciously and then physically. I'll be like, well, I can't hang out. I'll talk with you and everything, but don't expect me to just cling on to someone like that, because it'll drag me down. I can't let that happen. So that, Jay, I follow along the same lines there. I hate having a smaller one. I hate having to repeat myself. I hate that. If I say something and like,
What'd you say?
God, it drives me crazy.
Ding, 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 ding. We all check out.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy. And
Listen to me. Like I do this all the time, and if I go out at the house or to the door.
my parents, like, they can't hear that well anyways. So, like, if I go to – there's a quick prod or jab at my mom and dad. But they can't hear that well. So if I say something and they ask me over and over what I've said, I will go into this big, like, monster-like voice, very annoying, enough to, like, scare people essentially, so I can get it out. And then they think I'm a jerk, but I'm like, all right, I'm already fed up. I'm going to make sure you hear everything I have to say now.
Steve does the Twitter talk where it's like, thank you for how they put the clap in
everyone.
between.
Yeah.
That's what Steve does.
Or the typing on Twitter would be the word and the period and the word and the period and like segmented sentence.
Yeah. That's funny.
So that's real sharp.
I think everybody. I think like 99.9% of the world is like that. I think
Sure.
Just have better coping.
teachers,
mechanisms.
you are special people to be able to talk to these kids and be able to do that. You're extremely special. So thank you all.
Oh my God. That's a downfall of mine would be patience. I have no patience. If I want it now, I wanted it yesterday. Like, I'd rather it already had happened. So that's really bad for me.
I think mine, I'll throw a couple at you. First off, like a little bit more lighthearted one. Still just as frustrating to me. It's like my kind of spastic nature and not slowing down and taking my time on some things that result in catastrophes. Like, I'll give you a story. We have like a glass top range or stove at the house, and it is I hate like feeling uncoordinated and dropping things, or breaking something or knocking something off. Or so, long story short, I was cooking dinner. Lauren was coming home from work. Her dad was supposed to come over that night. We were in the middle of getting ready for some company, and I reach up in the cabinet in a hurry, not necessarily paying attention to what I'm doing, because I just, multitasking, think I'm on top of everything, and I grab a glass jar of spaghetti sauce. By the top, and I get to doing something else, it slips out of my hands. I go to fumble and catch it, feeling like a complete spaz, angle it in just perfectly to hit the strongest part of the glass on the top of our stove, which is in a new house. It was a new piece of equipment, or new to us, and a newer piece of equipment when we bought the house, and just shattered it. Blew the glass completely down, in through the eye, cracks everywhere, and it was everything I could do not to just lose my
mind, and it turned into like a movie scene where I'm flipping coffee tables.
He actually threw the spaghetti sauce through the window to his
No, so that's like a little thing, like any kind of spastic, like dropping things, like spilling water, spilling a drink. Like, as soon as Lauren got home, she looked at me with like this little cheeky smile on her face, and she's just like, "How mad were you?" Right whenever I did it. So you could probably have seen steam come out of my ears. But like, in a more serious note, I guess, like dishonesty is a huge one, even the smallest, like little white lie type thing. And then on top of that, like loyalty, like a feeling of loyalty to people or ideas or to gyms or, to methodologies or something. When people toy around with that stuff, I'm not a big fan of that. That really gets under my skin pretty good, which I would say, like you said, a lot of people feel the same way about those type things. But those just come right into my head whenever Galen shot that question off from his hip. But I guess those would be my answers.
Taryn reverted back to Ozark scenes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Opening scenes, might I say. Like, I'm glad he jumped. Never mind. I don't get too carried away in the weeds.
Roadkill.
Yeah. Well, anyways, did you guys have any other questions or things that you had lined out, Jay? Any rapid fires or anything?
I got this. I guess relates more to life. My phone is getting blown up. I'm sorry.
Joe Rogan would be so mad at you right now for not silencing that.
Yeah, well.
Hey, Taryn, let me take that a little further.
Yeah.
Like, okay, for me, I hate, this sounds bad, this is something I should not be like, but I do not like making mistakes at all, especially publicly. So do you think that your mistake, does it go into anything bigger than that, or is it just small things like that? Does that make sense? Like your fumble your fumble was small, not a big deal.
Yeah.
But does it escalate into bigger things too, like where you don't want to mess up in front of people, or is it just, you know what I'm saying?
I'm sure it could have some underlying, there could be some underlying concern with that too. But I think I was just as mad at doing that at my house. I'm saying literally, if I knock over a little glass of water into the floor and I have to take time to clean that up, or like a plant, go figure, I reference plants, and I have to take time to clean that up. I think I get just as mad doing that as if I did something like that in public. So I don't know if it necessarily is like eyes on me type thing, or is it's kind of the Galen situation of me being mad at myself for doing that. Like, how could you do that? You idiot. Yeah. That's ridiculous. You're a child. You're not a child anymore. Those kind of thoughts that were running through my head the most. So I don't know. Maybe to answer your question, but I think I might get just as mad at myself than I would worry about other people's perception of me. I didn't really care when Lauren's dad came and saw that I just busted the top out of my oven. I was more mad at myself already, than I ever needed to be. So
sure.
By the way, there's a new one in there and it's already fixed and wired, and I did it myself. So if you need a handyman, don't hire me.
Segue.
As a fire cuts on in the kitchen next to me. Yeah.
Now, little things like that don't bother me. I shattered a mayonnaise jar the other day. Robin makes homemade mayonnaise with eggs and olive oil. Shattered. It was just like, all right, got to put Odin up, sweep it up. I really like to have some mayonnaise right now, but I can't have mayonnaise. But if I think if multiple things happen in a day like that, I'm irate. I remember the door lock at the gym.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I was so mad. I couldn't get to work. Had to go buy another door lock. And it was 4 things in one day it happened. I just came home, and we had a piece of recycling cardboard box, and I kicked it across the room. I was so mad I was shaking. And then I was fine after that.
That's what I mean when I say mine kind of spirals out of control once I lose control. It's just typo in a text message that we send to somebody. I'm like, you idiot. So then I type an email, and somehow or another the email has a message that's wrong in it, and then it just this small mistake grows and grows, and my patience with myself that I should offer myself some grace, I don't, and that makes me angry, and then I'm hateful with Trista, and I end up punting Blue across the house, and everything else just flies.
And then you see Taryn's social media post with a typo in it, and then you just lose it already. Yeah. Well, interesting. It's wild how each individual person has small little triggers, to use that term that circulates in the millennial mentality now, triggers and things. But everyone's got them. Yeah. Hashtag triggered. Everyone's got them. It's just, I guess, how you act upon them and whether you need to pursue that up the ladder into the public eye, I guess, as opposed to handle that yourself.
I don't get mad much, but when I do, it's 100,000%. All right, I'm angry. I'm shaking. All right, I got to calm down, and then I'm fine. And little things don't bother me unless it's, like I said, that was like a 6-hour day of screwing with the door lock, not knowing why I did it. Then I ruined the door lock. And it's just why is this not working? And then one dude comes in and goes, oh, you're supposed to twist this. And I'm like, I'm an idiot.
Justin's a pressure cooker that can hold 1,000 PSI, and each, what we're doing, puts in 20 PSI, and just a little bit. So, but you can hold a lot of PSI in your pressure cooker.
Yeah, it's just
you don't lose it very much. Yeah. Cool. What else? What did you end up saying?
I brought up the comparison of COVID deaths versus long-term deaths of starvation. So if you watch any type of media, CNN, NBC, ABC, MSNBC, CNBC, all that stuff's usually pretty left-leaning. Fox News, pretty right-leaning. I think it's about the only right-leaning one left. But they're talking about NBC, and I think all of them's covered it, talking about food supply chains being broken where people are not working. Trump just signed an executive order of meat plants to stay manufacturing meats and stuff like that. Somebody coming in?
Yeah.
Always when I'm talking. It's cops or Zach. Food supply chains being broken and possible an additional 130 million deaths due to starvation. So I think that's really interesting. They're estimating between 200,000 and 300,000 people dying from COVID. And now that food chains are being broken up, maybe it will be exponentially higher than that. So it makes you think about what's the best way to do it. And I think that's a reason why Tennessee, Georgia, and some of these states, and even Sweden really didn't shut down. They're out operating at 50% capacity in restaurants there. And we can leave all these links below and go from there. What y'all thoughts on that?
Did you guys read, not to jump ship, but did you read about the governor who did not shut down at all? And then
Dakota?
I think it was North Dakota,
Yeah.
and something like some town, I guess, somewhere threw a parade for doing that, for not shutting down.
Yeah.
I thought that was I have no idea why. I didn't read into it enough to know, but I thought that was very interesting, talking about shutting things down and not shutting things down.
Yeah.
Shout out to Paige and Jeffrey Scott if they're watching, North
Yeah.
Dakota. Yeah, they lived up there for a while, so they can attest to maybe the mentality of those folks.
Got work to do.
Yeah, they're probably hardworking folks up there. I'd say around some oil activity, I would assume.
That's what I was thinking.
Blue collar type mentalities, I would assume.
Feed the family.
Yeah.
Feed the family.
You want to comment on the food thing?
Ugh.
So are we looking at, were you saying that in comparison, like starvation around globally versus COVID and how it affects it, or how COVID could cause more starvation? Is that
Honestly, both. Like, do we jumpstart the economy earlier and take a chance at people, more cases, or do we keep it prolonged? World economy crashes, exponential amount of people die.
I've always leaned towards going back. It's a hard stance to take, but I think continuing a shutdown is way, 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 way more detrimental. But that's the way I feel. I think the long term of holding this shutdown or anything close to it is way worse. You know.
It seems to be like the masses, and we've said it 100 times on the podcast, and you've probably heard it 1,000 times throughout day-to-day life, is this, it's always the unknown and the sourcing of information and whether the hysteria is real or not, but it's all the question of the unknown of how serious it could be or could have gotten had we not have, pulled the plug or pulled the trigger. And that probably will always be the question, I think anyways. It's, had we not have shut down capacity in the vast majority of our states, what could the numbers have looked like? Were the models more accurate? Did the shutdown actually help? It's hard to say. I know you can make comparisons for other countries, but other countries aren't nearly as densely populated, you wouldn't say, as ours. So it's like, I don't know. It's hard to say. And then that on top of that, it's hard to say whether then the shutdown would impact you economically more than losing a family member or not. So that's hard water to wade through, I think.
I think like you're talking about, mostly densely populated places like New York City and stuff are getting hit the hardest. Plus, everyone uses public transportation there, and you've been to New York City? Mm-hmm. Like, the public transportation is disgusting. Like, you get on there, it's like, I don't know if I want to touch anything here. But they did have Sweden. I think, if I could be wrong, fact check me. Per square mile, I think they have like 42 people per square mile. United States, I think we have 67 or 62 or something like that. I could have got those mixed up, but it's something like that. So about 20-ish people more per square mile, which isn't that much, I wouldn't think. But then you go to New York City or something like that, and it's 1,000 people per square mile.
You're looking at
if you're going through the whole state, the whole state, that is. But
the trick of that would be the average, right?
Yeah.
Because we have really dense spots, and then for the most part, not dense spots. Yeah. And you're seeing the average of that bridge.
The whole,
So that's
the whole country. So, and then Florida's took kind of a lax stance on it too. It seems like they shut down the beaches for 2 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, because they caught a lot of flack for spring break, and then they opened back up, and they really hadn't had a change in it. But they also have a warmer climate and a little bit more humid climate, I would say too, which they say kills the virus worse. So I think, as Galen talked about, maybe the last one, or maybe the first one we actually did, talking about different standards for different places. And you can't blanket through the whole country, especially countries big as ours. Sweden's a little bit different, smaller country, but as geographically large as we are, I think different.
Yeah, it's just, at this point, we're all just speculating.
Yeah.
I don't have any insight that's worth considering. I would just throw into the conversation that culturally they're different. Obviously, their perception of government and how they follow mandated orders from top down is totally different. So there's so many variables that it seems like a fool's errand, or maybe even irresponsible to compare all these places. That's probably a tired trope that we've all heard so many times, at least from those who are responsible enough to say, we don't really know.
Yep.
So I'll leave it at that.
Well, to be fair, I think I said this last time. I don't think anyone knows anything. Like we were talking a minute ago about using the terms recommended. Okay, and it seems like all the main doctors like Fauci and Birx and all those guys, this is what we recommend. This is what the model shows. The model is only showing the numbers that we fed into it. That's not the actual hard data. These are just projections. So it doesn't look like anybody truly knows, but the one thing we do know is if we stop working for any longer and we keep printing $1 trillion a day, which is what it is right now, our dollar will be worth nothing. And we'll go to the point where $20 that bought me something is now $40, is now $50. And that's the one thing that I do know.
Well, so, the rebuttal of that as well is, yes, our dollar is getting weaker, but if everyone else's in the world is getting weaker as well, it stabilizes.
All boats rise and sink. And this is sadly a global economy right now. I assume it's affecting all economies at some sort of degree. I don't know how impactful it is cross country, but we live in the world is flat. You guys ever read that book? There's a flattened world, and this is an argument against it. No, this was way earlier than the flat earther. It's like around my college days. The world, Thomas Friedman, I think, wrote The World is Flat. I think.
And you could say that, sure. You could say that everyone's getting the hits, but you have different GDPs at different levels. It's kind of like saying, okay, I have $20 and you have $100. We're both losing money, but you have $100. You were better off to begin with. Does that make sense? So we're at different levels already. Hopefully that makes sense. What I'm saying.
Maybe
we're both losing, but
levels, they both go down at the same time too, because the goods are still going to be the goods that people have to buy.
The high water mark is the same, and the low water mark is the same. You might have a bigger ship, you might have a dinghy, but you still have the same water being the global economy.
I see what you're saying. I still think there could be a shift of power.
Terrence said something.
That's a good analogy, that high water dinghy versus cruise ship.
Yeah.
It goes up and down together.
If it's the world, well, like if it was just the United States suffering from, I think, the pandemic, I think, we would be absolutely hurting extremely bad. But if the whole world's suffering and everyone else is printing money the same, or even more, I think Canada, they're doing $2,000, I think, a month, which Canadian, I think that's $7 US. No, I'm kidding. Sorry for all you Canadians. I'm kidding. But I think ours, it'd be like, I don't know, $1,500 our money, something like that. I think so. Canadian $2,000, but that's what they're getting a month. So who knows? Who knows? Like I say, we're all speculating as well, just asking questions. And if y'all have any comments or if you hate us, please comment below. Okay.
Probably the most commented upon exchange so far.
We're just going to get some clapping hands and some emojis. That's all we're going to get.
The question you asked leads into rough waters as far as how to answer it.
I don't think there's any good answers now.
No, it's just opinion. Like, should we go back? Should we chill out where we are? My answer is always going to be we should go back.
You know who Peter Schiff is? Stock market guy? He's talking about saying, Taryn and I were talking about stocks earlier, and the F-Stoppers guys I watch, he's in a group with Peter Schiff, or pays for his whatever his product is. He's saying that it's silly that the economy is going the way it is, and then it will eventually drop. He's like, it's going to drop no matter what, especially for restaurants, and airplanes are only allowed to operate at 20 to 50%. He's like, they can't support themselves like that. Like, everyone's going to have to get bailed out. And he's thinking of like 2008. That's what he said. He said, she said.
Well, sure. And then in 2008, you have people against bailouts because those companies were negligible. This was not the case this time. These guys were not negligible.
Yeah.
They were doing fine. And then we asked them to shut down. So we actually should bail them out this time. Maybe we shouldn't have bailed them out last time as far as banks go, if that makes sense. They did it to themselves back then, but right now we asked them to shut down. So I think it's only fair that we do bail them out this time if we're going to.
Everything's so fragile. It's like, what do you do? What do you do?
Sure, it's tough. I'd say it's.
We'll say I'm not making those decisions.
Yeah, I've said that all along. I'm not an economist and I don't play one on TV. I can't imagine making decisions right now in real time that affect things that the unconsidered. It's just, we have so many blind spots. We're fools if we think we have any sort of thumb on the pulse of every ripple effect of each decision, I think. But that's the nature of the political system we all enjoy, right? I mean, it seems as though the prevailing trend is to shy away from admitting mistakes. We talked about this whole humility characteristic, and you guys talked about it, hypocrisy or being trustworthy or being honest. That germ has not spread like COVID.
Well done.
That's beautiful.
Wow, connection of the day right there. Nice. That was beautiful.
That's what we'll do. We'll make a COVID emblem on a T-shirt, and then instead of writing COVID in it, we're just going to put humility in the middle of it and like spread.
Yeah. Yes, man. Spread goodwill. Spread love, and you rarely. Mark Twain says that. I think it was Mark Twain. It's never the wrong time to do the right thing. Never. So that's my little soapbox. I'll step down off of that. I don't think we have earned respect in these political discussions just yet. So if you guys have anything that totally lets us jump out of this hot frying pan that we found ourselves in.
Yeah, I'll shift us out of here. So one thing you mentioned, Galen, it might have been on podcast episode 2 or maybe 1, I can't remember, but you brought up our reddish maroon hoodie and the logo we fired on the front about all training being an act of philosophy. And I wanted to dig in and maybe expand on that and talk about why some of those themes that generated that thought to be put on a hoodie could be more important now than ever for people, because these very fragile times, and we just watch some liberties or what we normally do be pulled away from us, which in some cases pinned people pretty close to their homes and took away some things that they might have taken for granted. So I wanted to maybe spin that into like a voluntary hardship idea, because throughout many outlier challenges and throughout maybe just training in the gym, you've probably heard us mention or challenge you with doing things that aren't comfortable when you're in a setting where things could be completely comfortable. So for example, asking you, and some people think we're absolutely crazy for even mentioning this, but the cold shower or the cold hike, not prepared with clothes that you normally would wear, or showing up to the gym every single day and doing a challenging workout, fasting. So many of those things are under the same category of what we deem a voluntary hardship, doing something that makes you uncomfortable, but it's not really necessary. You're volunteering to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation when things could be normal. And what I've been looking up and kind of seeing is that kind of stuff is very powerful in that it can help you to, one, appreciate what you have and appreciate the goods and the good meal that is consistently there, or the good sleep in the warm, cozy bed, or the hot shower, the hot water you have, or not having to feel like you just got beat up after a workout. All those things aren't required during times that are good. So you appreciate good times. And then also too, not being afraid of being exposed a little more, which is like what COVID did. So sharpening that mind a little bit. So does anyone want to kind of expand their thoughts on all training is an act of philosophy? I think the voluntary hardship is the biggest thing for me, because it just, you maybe unknowingly, or you kind of prepared yourself for hard times by choosing to do something hard when times were good. And sometimes the resiliency of sharpening that mind helps you in times like this, and it might have got you through even without you realizing, and kept you in a pretty good mental state. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I know it's a little roundabout way of saying it, but there's so much power and importance in choosing to do things that aren't necessarily fun or comfortable or the norm to most people. And some people will be like, you're crazy for doing that. Why would I take a cold shower? It's like, you don't have to. But if I can sacrifice myself for 2 minutes of a day, the sharpening this, or making me appreciate that, or realizing that things don't always have to be sunshine and rainbows and perfect for me to still be happy, then when things aren't good, or when I'm not actually happy, I know I'm resilient. I can battle through it. I think there's so much power in that, and it speaks so much to what we say about some of our angles.
We have mentioned this in the past. Seneca, who is one of my favorite
That's who it was. Yeah, I was looking up.
Stoics, wrote a letter on feasting, on fasting, and in seasons of his life, he would dress like a pauper and choose to fast. And I think, I don't want to interpret Seneca because I'm certainly not equipped to do so, but if anything, to build on what you said, Taryn, it gives you contrast, right? So rather than everything blending into this is a humdrum, I'm taking things for granted, but I can contrast the luxury of my life with what privation might be like through fasting, through a cold shower, through hard training. And it provides me flavor for, hey, we talk about palate fatigue when we eat food. You eat a bunch of sweet and sweet stops tasting sweet. You do something salty so that you can appreciate the sweet. This is choosing to acknowledge that life does in fact possess contrast and that we often take it for granted. And like Taryn says, if you do these little small acts weekly, sometimes daily, there was probably a 2-year period when I didn't not take a cold shower. I've kind of softened in my old age and with my metal collarbone, but it's everything in my opinion. If you would be prepared for the task, you better practice, for the task is necessary. And I love that idea, and obviously it came from deep within the bowels of my soul.
And to continue referencing Seneca, some of the things I was reading too, and it references the contrasting part, is that you can't. And Jordan Peterson talks about this. You hear us reference him as a figure we look up to in his teachings and helping us develop as individuals, but you can't always chase like happiness or things that make you feel good, because that contrast starts to fade over time, regardless of whether you achieve that. There's always another level. It's like, if I get the promotion and I make more money, then I'll be happy. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, you got your promotion and you're making that money, but with that came other problems, or you were desensitized to that change. And it's like, if we're always on the hunt for that, we lose the ability to contrast, because if you just keep chasing the happiness, as opposed to reverse engineering it, and putting yourself through stressful situations in preparation, or to allow you to realize what actually is the origin of your happiness, or where you're rooted, So that contrasting theme that you brought up is a good point. To my understanding, he wrote about dressing in those unique clothes, not only to make him appreciate his nice stuff, but also to be laughed at and learn humility.
Socially.
Yeah. Socially. Like, he's essentially putting himself out there to learn how to deal with people mimicking and mocking and making fun of him. So talk about humility.
Yeah. Just a little back. Seneca was extremely rich as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's for him to be able, I think he said he lived off beans for that whole week. He'd do it 2 or 3 times a year. He'd just eat beans or something like that.
It would be very minimal calories.
And like barley.
Porridge. Yeah. Maybe barley. Yeah, maybe it was barley.
Something extremely cheap, which is, like I said, I don't know. CrossFit, when we started, it just clicked. It changed my life, because it was just like, all right, competitive Halo 2, here we go. Oh, wow, I puked 6 times. It's like, if I can do this, like, real life isn't that bad. People get so depressed at a rainy day. Like, you just did Murph yesterday. Like, how hard was that? And then it's a rainy day. It kind of goes back to my poor little old me thing. It's just like, you can deal with it. You may not know that yet, but you can deal with it.
It's like laying little reference points.
Yeah.
Like, you always can reference back to, oh, this isn't bad because that was bad.
Exactly.
Or this doesn't hurt because that hurt. Or that's not stress because that was stress. So.
Jordan Peterson talks about nursing homes and life, and his psychiatric patients, and his clinical psychology, and how do not do for someone what they can do for themselves, which basically means, hey, if you're willing to do this, you're going to be fine. You can get through it. But if I have to rely on Galen to tell me that I'm doing great every single day and it's not that bad, and me getting pity out of that, I'm not going to change, in my opinion. I think it's more of you have to learn to trust yourself and just do the work. That's what sucks about it. Just got to do it.
Yeah, it's we're basically just circling around mindset. That's all it is. So the way I think of it is, I'm going to quote, you guys quoted Seneca, I'm going to quote the great Mike Tyson. And no, I'm not even sure if he said. I'm not even sure if he said this, but it was something along
ears.
Can you repeat yourself?
I see what you did there. He says, I'll do what people won't do today so I can do tomorrow what people can't. And so what I mean by that is putting in the hard work is what's going to take you to where you want to go. And even though it's kind of like the cold showers and all that, this stuff is not enjoyable. Nor is training a lot of times, but it's like.
Or broccoli.
That's right.
But there are days you can eat broccoli.
But that's kind of that's the beauty of it all is doing what you don't want to do in order to get to where you want to go. And it's like that in anything. You were talking about.
Go ahead.
You were talking about making money, and that's another thing. It's like people don't know the mentality you have to build to get there anyways. Like what's cool about guys that are rich, if you watch them, like say they file for bankruptcy and you notice they go right back to the top again. Why is that? It's their mind. They built their minds. I mean, even Trump, whatever's went bankrupt 2 or 3 times. Where'd he go? He went right back up there. And you see many cases like that. Or you see the opposite where you see like a lottery winner loses it all and never gets it back. Why is that? It's mindset.
Can relate that hard work because Galen talks about that carrot dangling in front of you. Those guys that are usually successful like that, they've had to work and they realize that work gets them stuff like that. As far as someone just, all right, I played 6 correct numbers and here's $240 million. I've got a beautiful putt between my legs. Go ahead, there.
Well, that was good. No, that was a good spinoff too.
I don't know. Basically what we're trying to do at the gym is like if we are a flower or a plant, we're trying to give you enough stuff to water you to help you to grow. So that's what we're trying to do. And that water is mostly through hardship, philosophy, and just education. So as G always says, inspire, educate, and entertain. That's what we're here to do. Build you up.
Yeah, by all means, maybe this was a good example of us. Those aren't ideas that we came up with. Like we don't just say, oh, it'd be a good idea for you to take a cold shower because we think it's a good idea. You know,
Sure.
There's a method to the madness that seems like some of the outlier challenge themes, you know, and it's good to be able to.
Next time we'll have you have to roll around in a pit of gravel. That'll be the next volunteer.
Give us glass. Give us glass.
Yeah, we're working on anti-fragile skin. That's what we're doing. Yeah, these are certainly not our ideas. We're just standing on principles of giants and shoulders and seeing further because of that perspective.
Well, they say success leaves clues. Those are the clues.
Like it.
Do you guys have anything else you want to expand upon? I know we started off with a little bit of time and wordiness with the unrolling ideas, and then we got into some of our own stuff. Do you guys have anything else you want to jump through?
No, I think we're good. Just circling back around to hopefully we see you guys Friday, and those are our guidelines, and we're super excited to see you. We may not be able to hug you, but or kiss you, but we can throw up a little high five, air high five.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. Thank you all. Hope to see you in the gym. We'll have everything set up for you.
And we'll get after it. Maybe to circle back to what we just talked about and to end it on a positive note and kind of going off what Steve said, maybe we utilize what we went through for the past month as a refresher or a reset button for our minds. And I know I can speak for us for the excitement of Friday being right around the corner is just another reminder of what it's like to not have that we really love. Yeah. And it's coming back to us. So that was a beautiful reset and a involuntary hardship that we were fortunately prepared for, but now we can appreciate coming back to see you. So Friday's the day. Reference back to the start of the podcast, or check out the links that we'll provide that get you in touch with the Tennessee criteria for reopening. And we will see you back bright and early and all throughout the day on Friday and tee this thing back up.
Huge thank you to people who stuck with us. And like, I was like, every time I thought something.
Go, guys.
Wait for it.
Go ahead. You're good.
Okay. Huge thanks to all the ones that have stuck with us. We know it hadn't been easy, especially continue to pay your membership. Join us on the Zoom calls. Some of you haven't joined us on the Zoom calls, but still say you're working out. We really appreciate you and thank you for trusting us.
Amen.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right.
Until then, though.
Oh, go ahead, G.
I said until then.
Until then, on that note, signing off, episode 3 of Lightning in a Bottle. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Oh.